On Singapore Tonight, private sector economists lower their 2015 growth forecast for Singapore in a latest quarterly survey. The poll by the Monetary Authority of Singapore found that the experts expect the economy to grow 2.8% this year. That's down from the previous forecast of 3.1%. An enhanced place and train program targeted at professionals, managers and executives was launched today, called PMAX. It will place over 3,000 PMEs in jobs with small and medium enterprises over the next 2 years. And Singapore could soon see a fourth telco. Internet service provider MyRepublic announces plans to put together a bid in the next 4G spectrum auction. If successful, it says it could offer larger data bundles. Good evening and a warm welcome to Singapore Tonight. I'm Dawn Tan. Now first, an update on the health of former Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. Mr. Lee remains critically ill in intensive care and his condition has deteriorated further. Now that's according to a statement from the Prime Minister's office today. Mr. Lee is 91 years old. He has been in the Singapore General Hospital since when he was hospitalized for severe pneumonia. At the end of February, the Prime Minister's office said he had been put on mechanical ventilation. Now, his condition worsened yesterday due to an infection. Mr. Lee's health has drawn the interest of the foreign media and the public. And for more on that, we cross over live to Imelda Saad, who's at Singapore General Hospital. Imelda, can you tell us what's happening on the ground?
Well, Dawn, members of the media have started gathering here at one of the blocks at the Singapore General Hospital since as early as, 2-3 p.m. This afternoon, ever since the news broke that Ms. Lee's condition had deteriorated. When I was there earlier on, I popped by to have a look, and there were about 30 to 40 people just milling around. Right now, it's dwindled to about 20. There are members of the mainstream media, members of the foreign media, including representatives from various social political websites. Also, even Singaporeans, curious onlookers who just came by to see what's happening and to try and get any updates they can on Mr. Lee's situation. Now, what I hear is that some members of the family did pay a visit to Mr. Lee here. His grandson was spotted, his daughter was spotted, also his youngest son. Security personnel tried to shoo the media away. They even put up barricades so that the media can stand behind the barricades so that they don't block the lift entrance to the wards. So that's about what's happening here. No further updates on Mr. Lee's condition so far.
All right, Imelda, there have been lots of rumours online, Imelda, about the situation. Can you tell us more?
Well, yeah. There have been a lot of rumors circulating the entire day about Mr. Lee's condition and his situation, but basically there's been nothing official that has come out. The last official update we had did come in just before 2 p.m. I believe, and that was just to say that Mr. Lee's condition had deteriorated, but nothing official since then. We're still waiting to see if there's any more official statements coming up, but we would probably know more when Mr. Lee's doctors visit him the next morning to assess his condition. Dawn.
All right, Imelda, thank you very much for that update. That was Imelda Saad there reporting live from SGH. In our headline stories tonight, private sector economists have lowered their 2015 growth forecast for Singapore in a latest quarterly survey. And the poll by the Monetary Authority of Singapore found that the experts expect the economy to grow 2.8% this year, down from the previous forecast of 3.1%. The estimates are based on median figures obtained from the survey of 21 economists and analysts who closely monitor Singapore's economy. Dylan Lowe reports.
The official government forecast is for Singapore's economy to grow between 2 and 4% in 2015. Private sector economists surveyed have tipped the figure to be slightly below the midpoint of that range at 2.8%. Out of several key industries, the economists have downgraded their growth forecast for all sectors except finance and insurance. Now that sector is tipped to grow 7.5%, up from 6.5% in the previous forecast.
We saw the manufacturing outlook growth forecast shaved down from about 3% to about 1.5%. And this is generally in line with the government's productivity drive. We're seeing lower value-added jobs being replaced by higher value-added jobs. But during this transition, there will be some pain and there will be some slower growth in the manufacturing sector.
The central bank said growth in the final quarter of 2014 was weaker than expected. The economy expanded 2.1% in that quarter. This was lower than the median forecast of 2.3% in a previous economist survey. For 2014 as a whole, the economy expanded 2.9%, slightly below the 3% estimate.
Amid expectations of slower growth, there is a silver lining. Economists project the unemployment rate to be 2% at the end of 2015. For them, that's basically a situation of full employment.
Quite a change was seen in the expectations of economists surveyed when it came to headline inflation. The median forecast in the previous poll was 1.1%. Economists have since lowered that to 0.1%. Also, with the United States economy picking up and the Federal Reserve expected to normalize interest rates, the Sing dollar is projected to weaken against the greenback.
For importers, this will mean that you have to pay more for the goods that you're going to import, particularly if it's denominated in US dollars. And what that means is that, well, you may see a compression in your profit margin if you're not able to pass on the cost to the consumers.
Looking ahead to 2016, economists polled expect growth to come in at 3.1%.
An enhanced place and train program targeted at professionals, managers and executives was launched today. Called PMAX, it will place over 3,000 PMEs in jobs with small and medium enterprises over the next 2 years. Now, the program builds on an earlier place and train program called Max Talent. Imelda Saad reports.
Introduced in 2012, the Max Talent program placed 1,000 PMEs in jobs across various industries. To further boost the employability of this group and help SMEs enhance their HR capabilities, there is now PMAX. At its launch on Wednesday, Manpower Minister Tan Chuan Jin said the program will help SMEs cope better with the challenges of talent recruitment, development and retention. And in a tight labour market, he said the focus should be on creating quality jobs.
Jobs that can provide a meaningful career profession for Singaporeans, that can fully tap on the abilities and the capabilities of Singaporeans. And at the same time, I think, to look at improving the way we do things, so to do things in a better way.
PMAX will include a new one-day SME workshop. It will help small businesses adopt and incorporate progressive HR practices by training supervisors to effectively communicate and work with PMEs in their organizations. The content of the existing PME workshop will also be enhanced to include modules on workplace ethics, joint target setting and performance reviews. Ms. Tan said this will better help PMEs transit and excel in the SME work environment. The program is open to all PMEs at various stages of their careers, including those who are currently unemployed. Workers will be matched with companies. To be eligible, SMEs must offer PMEs a gross monthly salary of at least $2,500. Companies which successfully retain their newly hired PMEs for 6 months can get a one-time assistance grant of $5,000. So far, 12 SMEs have pledged to come on board the program.
Most companies are actually made up of people, and people either deliver services or innovate products and so forth. So if the SME is able to take care of their human capital, I think the prospects in SME is still very bright.
28-year-old Isaac Chan will embark on the PMAX program. After a few years in sectors like F&B, events and advertising, he's now joined an HR tech startup to work on its content and marketing.
I just hope to get out of this program better sharpening of my current skill sets, really. My capabilities right now have been very broad, having been from different industries, and I feel as though like there are some similarities in terms of just having effective management of people, making sure that my content is on point.
Now, the Manpower Minister said the government is committed to helping SMEs transit to the new economy. SMEs are an integral part of Singapore's economic landscape, forming 99% of all enterprises and employing about 7 in 10 workers here. Now, SMEs also contribute to nearly half of Singapore's GDP.
A $200 million project to house and train 7,900 workers broke ground today at Jalan Papan in Jurong. Now, this will be the process industry's first dormitory with an integrated training facility. And most of these workers are employed in the chemical or petrochemical industry. At the groundbreaking ceremony, it was announced that residents will have up to 48 hours of subsidized training yearly. Workers can attend industry-specific courses, as well as courses on employability skills like computer literacy and conversational English. The dormitory is 10 minutes away from Jurong Island, where most of its workers are expected to work. Now, this will reduce the travelling time and fatigue of workers and improve on-site productivity. It's expected to be completed in mid-2016.
This purpose-built dormitory will be a continuation of the industry's effort to raise productivity and help its members' companies manage their business costs better.
The Manpower Ministry has launched a 2-week enhancement operation on crane and lifting operations. It says the aim is to ensure contractors remain vigilant. The exercise followed 7 accidents involving crane and lifting operations that took place since the start of the year. The latest 4 accidents occurred over a span of less than a week. None of the accidents incurred any fatality or serious injuries, but the ministry says they could result in a catastrophic impact on the safety of workers and the public. Crane owners and operators are reminded to ensure that operations do not endanger the safety of their workers and the public. Companies that fail to comply can be fined up to $500,000 for a first offence. Singapore could soon see a 4th telco joining the fray. Internet service provider MyRepublic announced it will be putting together a bid in the next 4G spectrum auction. Now, if successful, the company says it plans to offer larger data bundles starting at 10 gigabytes. This report by Patrick John Lim.
MyRepublic Singapore has ambitious plans to return to the days of larger and more generous data bundles if its spectrum bid is successful. The ISP says it hopes the focus on data would set it apart from competitors who have been cutting back on data sizes. MyRepublic says it plans to eventually offer unlimited data bundles, potentially priced at under $100. MyRepublic says it's negotiating with partners for its spectrum bid. It's in talks with local and foreign players who can provide funding and infrastructure expertise, but remains confident that its business model will be in place in time for an auction.
By end of the year, we anticipate that there will be an auction on the 4G spectrum. So we are putting our plans together right now. If we are successful, it also depends the time of auctions. And if it's end of the year, we look to start building almost immediately. So by end 2016 or early 2017, we look to be rolling out services.
Some industry watchers said while MyRepublic could be poised to disrupt the status quo, they say the company would still need support from regulators in order to gain entry.
They don't have the firepower to compete directly against the incumbents. So if the IDA decides to open all spectrum bands open for bidding for all comers, then I think it's clear that they'll be at a very significant competitive disadvantage. What they've highlighted is their request to the IDA is to basically ring fence a certain level of spectrum that is only biddable by new entrants into the marketplace. If that indeed is what occurs, it creates a far more favorable bidding environment for them.
The Infocom Development Authority said in a statement that it was assessing the industry's feedback regarding the proposed allocation of spectrum for mobile broadband services and options to enhance mobile competition and would make a decision soon.
And we'll bring you the analysts' views on MyRepublic's announcement shortly. But first, A reminder tonight that Mr. Lee Kuan Yew is in critical condition at Singapore General Hospital. His condition deteriorated further earlier today. There are various hoaxes circulating about Mr. Lee's condition. The Prime Minister's office has not issued any new information since this afternoon's update, and it says it is lodging a police report with regard to an image of a doctored statement supposedly from the PMO. Channel News Asia has checked and verified that it is indeed a fake. Now, the public is advised to check the source of any information, including the URLs of any information received. Now, we're going to go for a short break on Singapore Tonight, but coming right up, the Centre Point is getting a $50 million makeover. Find out what shoppers can expect when we return. And Singapore's first dedicated natural history museum opens exactly in a month. Find out how it's shaping up. Stay with us. Welcome back to Singapore Tonight. Now, as I've mentioned earlier in the show, internet service provider MyRepublic announced it will be putting together a bid in the next 4G spectrum auction. And to give us his perspectives on the possibility of a fourth telco here, we're joined by Ong Wee Teck. He's technology consulting leader at PwC. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
So what are some of the challenges that this new entrant is going to face?
I think if we look at just purely from the aspects of a number of players, clearly we will say it's too many players in the market in a small city-state like ours. But I think the challenge really is about creating new type of services. Digital is about disruption, and I think we're going through a revolution right now on the digital space. So I think if the new entrant can provide a very new type of services that are differentiated from existing services, I think there's certainly a market for that. And I think it's a very exciting time for consumer, actually.
All right, so you feel there may just be too many players on the field, but is there enough demand, though?
Well, if it's a traditional demand, I think certainly it will be crowded. But if they can create a new type of space where there's a use case that are differentiated, for example, focusing on, say, the downloader or the gamers, different personas that really would be differentiated, and I think if they cater to that sort of segment, I think that would be a crowd of one in that sense. I'm not saying the rest of the telcos are not doing it. I mean, if they can differentiate it, then certainly there's space for it. And I think that's what the future holds for us.
Wee Teck, what about the pricing of data plans in Singapore, perhaps as compared to others in East Asia? Are the other ones in Singapore, kind of expensive?
Yeah, I think as a consumer, generally, I would like to say it's expensive in that sense. But I think it's all relative in the sense of what I'm getting for the money I'm paying. So it's a value that I'm perceiving with regards to the services I'm getting. I think if I can get more values in the sense of my personal usage, I do a lot of research, I do a lot of data. I'm a huge data consumption kind of person, right? So if that caters to me, I don't mind paying for it, right? Right now I have unlimited. I don't think I'm paying a little bit too much for it, but in that sense, it will benefit consumer when there are more providers, right? Clearly.
But what's the risk, Wee Teck, for a telco actually providing unlimited mobile data?
Yeah, I think clearly it's kind of like a highway. There is a limit to how much that is. So my view is that in Singapore, at least, unlimited is the way to go. Because I think if you are a downloader for movies, you want to watch something like a Netflix or something that chew up bandwidth, you want unlimited. Otherwise, you want Wi-Fi, which it's not so easy on the go. So I think having on the go service mobile plan that's unlimited really will spurn higher usage. And I think going towards a smart nation, we really should be thinking more about unlimited for our data plan. That's clear. Yeah.
All right, thanks very much for coming in and sharing that with us, Wee Teck. That was Ong Wee Teck, their technology consulting leader at PwC. Moving on now, and the Centre Point is getting a $50 million makeover. It's part of Fraser's Centre Point Group's ongoing efforts to boost the shopping experience for customers. Now, major renovation works, which is scheduled to begin in May, will be on the ground and basement levels. Once completed, the mall will boast a more open concept layout and a new tenant mix. New thematic zones will focus on fashion, beauty, lifestyle, sports, dining and the home. The plan to remake the Centre Point was conceived last year. Now, first off the mark was a new anchor metro with a new format and look. The mall will remain open during the renovations, which are expected to be completed in the second half of next year. Global data company Equinix announced the opening of its third data center in Singapore. The new data center, known as SG3, spans 385,000 square feet and Equinix's largest in the Asia-Pacific. Equinix invested more than $70 million in the first phase of its development, taking its total investment in Singapore to more than $410 million. Now, Equinix says the opening of SG3 will further extend its platform to meet growing demand for interconnection and data center services in Singapore and the region.
Equinix has over 103 data centers around the world, and of which Singapore is one of the most important hubs in the world, certainly to service all of Southeast Asia, but many customers use this to service their business across all of Asia. So it's a very important hub for us in the world for financial services, for cloud providers, for content and digital media companies, as well as many enterprises. So it's been a critical market for us for several years, dated back as far as 2002.
Markets News Now. And Singapore shares ended lower, tracking declines in most of its regional peers. This is as investors await those results of a US Fed meeting, which could signal how soon US interest rates will rise. Now, the STI is down 0.2% at 3,361.75. DBS finished 0.7% higher, while OCBC slid into the red by 0.3%. Among property counters, CapitaLand and Hong Kong Land were down by around 1%. CityDev, meanwhile, gained 0.2%. Declines were seen in some transport stocks today. Comfort Delgro fell 1.3%, while SBS Transit was down 1.7%. Among blue chip counters, Singtel dropped by 1%. SIA, meanwhile, gained 2% as oil prices continued to fall. The International Chamber of Commerce is partnering government trade agency IE Singapore to launch the ICC Academy. Now, the Academy will offer specialized business training globally, and it's expected to strengthen Singapore's manpower in the trading community. Nicole Tan reports.
As a digital platform, the ICC Academy hopes to reach 5,000 professionals each year. The programs are open to all regardless of job and experience level, and the certifications are recognized by private and public institutions. The Academy will be headquartered in Singapore.
Singapore being not only a hub for international trade and finance and commerce, but a world force, not just a local force and a regional force, but a world force in global trade and global finance. It is the essence of Singapore, and it is in fact the essence of the International Chamber of Commerce. So it's a perfect union between our two efforts.
We know what the companies need and what kind of skill set is required for them to do a good job doing trading with the rest of the world. So we are able to then access the need and help provide these inputs to ICC so that they know what kind of curriculum they should provide, what are the changes they need to put in place, and what are the certification program, and maybe even what R&D program that they should have in the future.
Speaking at the launch, Trade and Industry Minister Lim Hng Kiang says the Academy can support the manpower needs of the trading community.
We remain committed to the development of deep industry-relevant skills for our workforce as part of the National Skills Future Initiative. The programs offered by the ICC will strengthen the effectiveness of our workforce and provide more opportunities for Singaporeans to undergo training to take on better jobs.
The Academy will start in end June with about 70 courses on banking and trade finance and offering 2 global certificates. Eventually, there are plans to introduce new courses ranging from international law to corruption prevention.
ICC is now working with local education institutions to create joint certification programs.
More than 420 seniors and students are taking part in this year's Intergenerational IT Boot Camp. It's the highest number to date, held in schools across Tanjong Pagar GRC and Radin Mas SMC. Both constituencies are running the course for the first time and are known to have a higher proportion of elderly residents. Organised by the Infocom Development Authority of Singapore, the programme helps senior citizens pick up basic IT skills. It also allows students to act as guides, using their knowledge of IT to bond with elderly family members or elderly residents of the community. Now, since 2010, the boot camps have reached out to over 2,000 pairs of seniors and students, and IDA says the week-long course is a good first step towards computer literacy, allowing seniors to build on this knowledge to participate in other IT courses and activities. Now, this includes the Silver Infocom Learning Fest to be held later this year.
Technology is really going fast. I think I'm left behind, so I think I have to come to learn something, despite my age. If I'm given the chance, I will enroll in the computer class to learn more.
You can see the program evolving from very basic IT skills, like maybe learning how to use the computer and the laptop, the PC type of computers, to now people are teaching them to use a smartphone, iPads, because the technology has evolved, and you would have met some of the elderly. Actually, they come back for a second or third time, and that's because whatever they learned in the past, now they want to learn something more.
Coming up after the break, COE premiums rose across the board in the latest bidding exercise today. And 22 illegal animals were found at an aquarium. The shop owner gets a fine. Stay with us. Welcome back to Singapore Tonight. Thanks for staying with us. It's exactly 1 month before the doors open to Singapore's first dedicated natural history museum. And it's been no mean feat to get this museum up and running. I caught up with some of the team who helped shape this historic project.
A home to call their own. Since 1972, Singapore's vast collection of natural history specimens has led a nomadic existence, moving from place to place and mostly stored in boxes. The collection began back in 1849 and is now estimated to exceed 500,000 rare wildlife specimens. And they tell the rich tale of the diversity that this region once boasted.
It was an era of discovery. A lot of these numerous specimens are also what you call historical, because a lot of these places, if you check back the localities, they no longer exist as a forest or a stream or a mountain. It could be now what paddy fields, industrial parks. So it tells you something about what had happened, why we have so many specimens. It's the equivalent of a library. Why do you have so many books? Okay, I mean, each book tells you something different.
And this centuries-old library is fragile. To make the big move, everything had to be cleaned and packed and stored carefully to prevent damage to pieces that are irreplaceable.
We try to keep the climate as controlled as possible. That means to keep humidity down so that the air is dry and the specimens do not get moldy. Because mold will eat away at the skin and the feathers and all that.
We have double layers of doors to keep all the warm air out, so that the whole environment is very stable, almost like a tomb, like a cave inside.
The best pieces which tell the story of biodiversity were chosen before being carefully mounted for display. And that precious collection has been joined by the recent acquisition of 3 Diplodocus skeletons that have been kept tightly under wraps for the grand opening. It turns out the tomb-like structure of the building was no coincidence, designed to ensure its light-averse residents stay perfectly preserved.
The form of the museum as a piece of rock sitting on a platform evolved from a thorough understanding of the needs and the program of the building for storage and exhibition of the specimens. The building called for minimal daylight penetration for conservation reasons. So the result is a compact windowless building.
And what would a natural history museum be without some context? 4 green landscaped gardens that feature only plants native to Singapore surround the 2-story building. That sounded like a good idea, except for one thing.
These native plants are very difficult to find. No nurseries supply this native plant, because I think over the years we have not been using native plants to landscape our garden city.
All these These boxes that you see here are filled with just part of the rich collection that make up the Natural History Museum. Now, it took a lot of effort to get this far. Who would ever put together a near-complete dinosaur skeleton in Singapore, for example? But best of all, when the new museum opens, the public will get to see some specimens that have never been seen before.